I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, scientists, educators, social scientists, and government leaders. We meet each one-to-one. I'm delighted to welcome Iris Weinshall, CUNY's Vice Chancellor for Facilities Planning, Construction, and Management. It's a long title and a job with daunting responsibilities. How do we reconcile the needs of CUNY students, the expansion of the system, with the fiscal constraints that are all too apparent? We'll discuss those issues and much more in this half hour. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm good. Before you came to CUNY, you served, among other things, as Transportation Commissioner under both Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg. How did working in those administrations differ from one another?
Well, first, when I was appointed by Rudy Giuliani, I was at another city agency, and DOT had gone through a number of commissioners, and I think there were 5 in the 8 years that Mr. Giuliani was mayor. And I was the first deputy in another agency, and I got a call from his chief of staff that the mayor wanted to see me. So, of course, I went over, I saw the mayor, and he said, "I'd like you to consider becoming the Transportation Commissioner." And I said, "I'm honored, Mr. Mayor, but, transportation is not my expertise." And he said, "I need a good manager. I need someone smart who's going to be able to comprehend the issues quickly and get the agency in shape." This was in August of 2000. My goal, because I had been in government my whole career, my goal was to become a commissioner of an agency, and went back, talked to my family about it because it was a big time commitment, and I went ahead and became commissioner. Of course, a year later, 9/11 happened, and everything got turned on its head.
Right.
Mike Bloomberg was elected mayor, and he went through a process where he interviewed a number of people, and I still wanted to stay on. I felt that my job had not been finished, that there were a number of initiatives I still wanted to do. And in the end, I was very fortunate. I was one of the few commissioners that the mayor, Mike Bloomberg, reappointed to their positions. There was a very big difference in the way that both city halls treated city agencies. In the Giuliani administration, there was more direction, hands-on, sort of, we'll tell you what to do from City Hall. In the Bloomberg administration, much to the mayor's credit, and if you ever read his book, Bloomberg on Bloomberg, his management approach is very different, which is that he appoints good, competent people, expects them to run their operations, and he's not going to interfere too much. He's not going to sort of put his nose in there and say, no, you should hire this person or hire that person or do this or do that. He expects ideas, new concepts, innovative ideas to come from the agencies to City Hall. I've often said that I'm very blessed in that I have served under 4 wonderful mayors, Ed Koch, David Dinkins, Rudy Giuliani, and Michael Bloomberg. Each of them with just very different styles. Mm-hmm. But, I would have to say that working for Michael Bloomberg, it was a whole different approach to city government than I think the other 3 mayors had.
In that job, I would think it's always a race against the elements, rebuilding infrastructure, bridges, streets, overseeing the flow of humanity. How do you think the city's doing in that regard right now?
I think the city is doing well. When you consider that 1 million vehicles come into our central business district every day, that is quite a challenge in terms of, the amount of cars and the streets that they roll over. I think that the biggest challenge that the city has is to keep all of the modes of transportation sort of in sync so that we have enough mass transit to get people around the city, that we have safe intersections so pedestrians feel as though they're safe, they can walk wherever they want without fear of being run over or hit. For the vehicles, I think that it's a matter of, not there always being gridlocked, that they can move freely within the central business district. And other modes of transportation. I mean, this administration has put in probably more bike lanes than any previous administration in city government, encouraging people to use their bikes as a mode of transportation and to make it easier to get from point A to point B. there's still a lot to do. And in particular, I would say the greatest need is probably in the area of mass transportation.
Yeah. We
have to create an alternative for people to get out of their cars and to use mass transportation in a way that it works for everybody. The demands are just tremendous. And
unfortunately, because of the budget problems, they're talking about cutting back rather dramatically.
Absolutely, and maybe that's not an area that should be cut back. And if we look at today's newspaper, the Senate now passed the stimulus bill, the House passed it. One of the areas that's going to benefit greatly under the stimulus package is infrastructure for mass transit. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be the biggest winner? New York City. And it's an area that, I believe that the mayor and the MTA and the governor are really focusing on, and properly so.
You came to CUNY in 2007. What prompted you to make the change?
Well, I had been the DOT commissioner for 7 years, and I loved my job. But, after a while, you sort of say to yourself, well, what more can I do? Can I still be effective? Are there other opportunities for me to sort of stretch my legs and try something new and different? I had always worked in city government in the area of infrastructure, of building, of economic development. And what very much appealed to me about the CUNY job is that it was sort of an intersection of all those functions. Clearly, we have a huge infrastructure base here at CUNY. We are definitely working on economic development projects because in many communities, the college is a real booster for economic development, whether we're doing workforce development or we're doing incubators. So that was another aspect. And, in your career, you want to try different things and you want to move on. I was also very enamored with the work that CUNY has done over the last few years. Matt Goldstein and the senior management at CUNY have really taken an institution and make it one that's very desirable, that's now respected in the education field. So when the opportunity came, I felt it was time to move on and try something new.
So are you basically the manager of all of the infrastructure?
I would guess I'm not only the manager, but I'm the Robert Moses.
Oh, wow.
We both we initiate, we conceive, and we build all of the new buildings that CUNY needs to be able to house its hundreds of thousands of students.
And it's how many thousands now?
About 244,000 students.
And how many buildings are we talking about right now?
We have about 293 buildings at CUNY. We have about 26 million square feet of space that we own, and then we lease another 1 million square feet of space all around the city. So we are a very large landowner and landlord in the city of New York. How's
the university, there's been a big surge in enrollment. How is the university coping with all of those additional students?
That's a challenge we're dealing with now. You look at a campus like BMCC, which is in Lower Manhattan. They have 22,000 students at BMCC. If you go to that campus on a Saturday night, there are classes going on. You go there on a Sunday, there are classes going on. And so one of the challenges that face us in my division is how do we make more space available and the right kind of space that we're able to educate all of these students. The chancellor, when he came to his office in 1999, he declared that this would be the decade of the sciences for CUNY. And, I've sort of come in the middle of his proclamation. We're now beginning to see those science buildings going into the ground to be able to create both the research space and the teaching space and the labs that our students need.
How have construction and maintenance at CUNY been affected by the recent state budget cuts or city budget cuts?
We were very lucky last year, and really we have to be very thankful to then Governor Spitzer and now Governor Patterson and the Speaker, Shelley Silver, as well as Joe Bruno. In last year's budget, where the crisis was just starting but it hadn't hit yet, there was a commitment to really afford more money to higher ed. And in last year's budget, CUNY probably got the biggest allocation that they'd ever gotten before, $1.6 billion to be spent over 5 years for various
And is that
projects.
still in place?
It is, and much to the credit, again, of the governor, it is still in place. One of the programs that was started had to do with critical maintenance. You know, with all of this infrastructure, you know, one of the issues was, are we maintaining the old buildings as we're building new buildings? We did a report which showed that we had about $1.4 billion of back maintenance that we needed to be done. To the legislature's credit and to the governor's credit, they recognized that program, and they said, we'll fund the critical maintenance project over 5 years. We'll give you your first amount of money this year, then next year, the year after, and we got $284 million last year. And in
just for maintenance?
Just for maintenance. And in this year's budget, they put another $284 million, even recognizing that this is a difficult economic period that we're in. They've lived up to their commitment, and they recognize that we have to still continue to maintain these buildings.
Have there been any projects that you've had to cancel or slow down? Or
We have not up until this point, because as I said, we got a very big allocation last year. One of the positive aspects of this economic situation we're in, we're beginning to see construction costs come down. So the materials are coming down, the prices that we're paying for manpower are beginning to come down. And so ultimately what's going to happen is that a lot of private developers can't put projects in the ground, but CUNY will be able to, and hopefully at a lower price.
One area you moved into in recent years is the construction of dormitories. Yes. I think you have one at City College. I know there's one going up at Queens College. Why moving in that direction, and how has it affected the campuses having dormitories?
Well, the reason why, let me just talk about the reason why we moved into that area. We are trying to attract the best and the brightest of students at CUNY, a trend that's been going on, but one that we would like to continue. There are many students who would like to come to CUNY, but would like to have the experience of living in a dorm. And we don't want to lose those students to either the state university system or to the private colleges. In addition, in a number of these locations, we have a lot of out-of-state students who come to CUNY. In particular, at City College, we have the finest, the best engineering program, probably in the country. And we found that we had a lot of out-of-state students who wanted to come to City College to study engineering.
And needed someplace to live.
Exactly. So that really was a good first project for us. The other reason why City College was a good first project, we owned the land.
Okay.
So we didn't have to go out and buy the land. We were able to build on our own campus. Likewise, at Queens College, which I know you know very well, again, we own the land. Now, at Queens College, one of our goals is to attract the best and the brightest students, not only from Queens, but from Nassau and Suffolk as well, very close by. But again, they would like to have that experience of living in a dorm and experiencing that. I will say that the campus, City College, has very much enjoyed having the dorm on their campus. When we first, I'll give you a little vignette about it, which is very interesting. When they first developed the campus, we couldn't fill it up with all City College students. And so we offered it to John Jay students, Baruch students, and we ultimately filled up the dorm.
Right.
The college advised us this year that next year they don't want those other college students.
They've got plenty.
They got enough.
Okay.
And so it's a success, so we're very happy about that.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back after the following message.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me. Feed the pig.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Iris Weinshall, CUNY's Vice Chancellor for Facilities Planning, Construction, and Management. Chancellor Goldstein recently announced plans to open a new 5,000 student community college. How are you going to, why, and how are you going to accomplish this given the economy?
Well, the answer of why is because, people seeking college degrees is just expanding in the city tremendously. And if you look at the 6 community colleges we have in the system, the one that's the fastest growing one that has the largest numbers of students is BMCC. We only have 1 community college in Manhattan. So just from location alone, the chancellor felt that we needed another community college
in Manhattan.
In Manhattan. Of course, not the best area to have to look for space to put a new community college. On top of that, we began at CUNY under the chancellor's guidance to look at what were the areas that people should be studying now to make themselves viable in the job market 5 or 6 or 10 years from now. And the thinking is to develop a community college which really focuses on certain areas where when people finish with their AA degree, they can then go into the job market and find a job pretty easily. One of the areas clearly is going to be healthcare and health maintenance. And so the idea was to develop this type of community college. In addition, when you look at community colleges, most people are working, they're going part-time. The goal of this community college would to have students be full-time students and really graduate within the 2-year period. Right now it's taking students anywhere from 6 to 8 years to graduate. So there were a number of concerns in terms of developing this new community college. At the same time that the chancellor sort of charged a group of us to look at this new community college concept, he also asked us to look at the assets which CUNY owns all over the city. And we happen to be sitting on a very important asset, which is associated with John Jay College. It's called North Hall. It's on 10th Avenue and 58th Street. And we're building a new building for John Jay on 11th Avenue. 600,000 square foot building. The architects are Skidmore Owens. It's going to be a spectacular building when it's finished in a couple of years, which will allow us to move whatever functions are in North Hall into this new building. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ideas that we're beginning to look at is to maybe create a public-private partnership with a private developer who will develop the site, but as part of this site we would have a 400,000 or 500,000 square foot community college at the base and some other private function above. Clearly, you know, in that market, one of the things that makes sense is condominiums. But, you know, we're not going to foreclose on any concept. We'll probably put out an RFP. Not probably, we will put out an RFP. And we'll try and figure out the best and possible use for that space. So we're very excited about this prospect. You know, it'll be...
Do you have a timeline for it?
Well, you know, our goal would be to get an RFP out probably within a year. To be honest with you, one of the things that's holding us back right now is that the real estate market is not what it was a year ago, and we want to get the best and the most optimal price for this property. So we're going to sort of wait and see in the next year how the economy goes. In an all-perfect world, we would like to have the functions in North Hall go to the new building at John Jay, and then simultaneously start demolition and construction.
And John Jay has moved to 4 years, right, from 2 years?
It has. It used to have both a 4-year program and a 2-year program, and now it just has a 4-year program.
In addressing new projects, do you ever have to personally go hat in hand to anybody for money?
The answer is yes. And, you know, we're very fortunate at CUNY. We have a lot of very dedicated alumni. And on a number of projects, we have been given substantial gifts in order to make the project happen. As an example, at Brooklyn College, which is my old alma mater, we got a very substantial gift from an individual who wants us to help build our new Performing Arts Center at Brooklyn College. In addition, we have to go to the state legislature, the city council for money. So we're very good at sort of hat in hand going to various interest groups to try and get these projects done. Are
there plans to seek additional sources of revenue? Well, you already are, but I mean more from the private sector, because my sense is that CUNY has always, you know, it's always been subject to the volatilities of the state and the city government. Are the colleges doing more in terms of developing their own alumni and private sources?
They are, and each of the campuses have a very strong alumni office that seeks out to get alumni to both, you know, give gifts, you know, for larger buildings or just, you know, name a room after themselves. You mentioned private-public partnerships. That is an area that we're very actively involved. As a matter of fact, when you mentioned the dorms, they were done as private-public partnerships. No public money went into those dorms. It was purely private development on CUNY land. Mm-hmm. We just had a wonderful opportunity in a private-public partnership, the new Hunter School of Social Work. The Hunter School of Social Work is located on 79th Street between Lex and Park. Probably not the best place for a social work school to be. And the building was owned by a foundation, New York City Community Trust. They came to us and they said, we don't want to own this building anymore. We want to sell it. But there's a problem. You have 67 years left on your lease. So we would like to sell the property and help you relocate to a new site. And the developer who bought the building, Dan Brodsky, a portion of the money that he gave to the New York City Community Trust to the building, I might add 3/4 of it, was given as a gift to CUNY to go into the new building. Mm-hmm. And so we will be building a new Hunter School of Social Work in East Harlem on 118th, 119th Street and 3rd Avenue.
In the case of, for instance, the Queens dormitory, what's in it for a private developer? Do they get the fee, the dorm fees, or what's in it for them?
Well, they're making a profit. They're not being eleemosynary. So if they're charging a student $1,000, a portion of the money will go to pay off the bonds, and a portion will be profit to the dorm developer. And on top of that, they get a development fee. So it's not completely that they care about CUNY. I mean, of course they do, but it's not that they're not being totally eleemosynary in the process. So they are making a profit, but we at CUNY view that we didn't have to put any dollars in. It's free and clear to us, and we give a benefit to our students on the campus.
You obviously have access to Washington in a personal way through your husband, Senator Charles Schumer. I assume you engage in shop talk. But is there a line that you refuse to cross in terms of information?
Yeah, I mean, Chuck and I talk about a lot of things when he comes home from Washington. But, we're very careful about, sort of not stepping over that line. I don't think I would actively lobby him for more money for CUNY, although I was very interested in the debate on the stimulus bill because there was $7 billion put in the House bill for infrastructure for higher ed purposes to be used on campuses for new buildings. Mm-hmm. In the Senate bill, that was zeroed out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So does that mean the federal government is not a likely source of money for CUNY anytime soon?
The answer is maybe, because now they've gone to a joint committee of the House and the Senate. And, we're hoping that some portion of the $7 billion will remain between the House and the Senate bill. Keep our fingers crossed. But it took a lot of restraint for me not to say to my husband, you got to get that $7 billion back in.
What's on your wish list?
Well, on my wish list, of course, is, we have a new 5-year capital plan for CUNY, probably totaling about $5 billion. That's above what they gave us last year. In my all-perfect world, I would like to get many more of these projects funded. As an example, we would like to build a new science building out at Brooklyn College. Clearly, we don't have all the money. We would like to get all the money. At City College, we're building a brand new science research building. There's plans to build a second science research building. I'd like to get the money for that project. At Queens College, we'd like to redo the gym out there. I'd like to get all the money for that project. So if I was writing the checks, if it was my priorities, there's a lot of projects that CUNY could very well do in the next 5 years that would both help the students and the university.
You mentioned this earlier, but I was surprised, and I had heard recently about the quality and the reputation of the engineering program at City College.
Yes, it's a great program, and not only do we have a great engineering program out at City College, but we have a great architecture program. And these are two programs that, attract people from all over the country to come to City College. But at the engineering school, clearly we're getting the best and the brightest now who want to be engineers in this country.
You're a proud alum of Brooklyn College, which has a lovely campus. How did going there influence your future?
Well, it was interesting. When I was getting ready to graduate Brooklyn College, there was a professor who was doing some psychological tests and figuring out where people should sort of end up in their life. It's sort of like I don't know, like a test about intelligence and your ability to do things. So he was paying everybody like $5 or $10 to take the survey. So I figured, oh, this is a good way to earn some money. And the results came back, and he said, it said I should be one of two things, either an architect or a public administrator, which sort of sparked me to think, well, what exactly is a public administrator? I did some research, and then I decided, well, government's a good career. So I went on to public administration school, and I like to always say that I've been very fortunate that I've had a career that's allowed me to do many different things, to work in many different agencies in city government, and now at CUNY, all in the public sphere. And it's been very rewarding and really just terrific.
And all from that initial influence at Brooklyn College.
At Brooklyn College, exactly, exactly.
Well, I mean, I think one of the missions of CUNY is to turn out, people who really contribute to the life of the city.
Absolutely. And, I go back to the campus now, and I go back to other campuses, and, I see students, and I say, what student is going to be the next commissioner of this agency, or what student's going to be the next doctor working at Bellevue?
Right.
Or, what are they going to be able to give back to the city?
We're out of time, but I want to thank Iris Weinshall, CUNY Vice Chancellor for Facilities Planning, Construction, and Management, for joining me today. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.